And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens. My co-host is Tristan Thomas.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk to the EIU Booth Library, Beth, Heldebrandt, and Zach Newell.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us back.
No problem. Well, I know there's a lot of things going on at the library right now. So where do we want to start? Anywhere particular?
Maybe we should just mention the obvious. We're coming up on 20th. It's the 20th anniversary of the reopening of the library, and that was in February, right?
Mm-hmm.
We commemorated that in our Note Booth newsletter. Just thought I'd mention it as we're hitting milestones around campus.
Yeah, when you think about 20 years since that you kind of when you repurposed it or wherever you want the library, then I think it was like there's been 8 million visitors since then. Is that what it is?
Right, yeah.
8 million in 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is, right.
I would do the math, but I can't. I know it's over 2 million.
That includes COVID when we didn't hardly have anyone.
And I was just going to say, it makes it even more amazing, right?
Well, take us back 20 years ago. When you think about that day and what was going on, and then fast forward 20 years and talk about the library in the last 20 years.
Neither of us were there 20 years ago. However, we do have some library staff who were there 20 years ago. We were talking about that with them. The dean at the time, Alan Lanham, saw a need to repurpose the space, renovate a lot of it, and that's when the southern portion of that building outside the clock tower, that was added on. So it was a long 2-year process of renovation. At the time, all the books were removed from the library and put in either McAfee Gym or what I call I think it was the old Walmart space in the strip mall, because we just needed storage. So our staff spent a lot of time running back and forth, gathering books for people who needed it during that time. When it was reopened, we saw in our newsletter that they had sort of a ceremonial bringing over of the books, because apparently when the first library opened, way back when, and I think it was in the 1940s, that's what they did. All the students got a handful of books from Old Main, and they walked them to the new library to put them on the bookshelves. So they kind of recreated that
tradition.
That tradition, and had people bring all the books over, and not all.
A lot of the people that were, I guess, the big shots of Eastern took part. So it's kind of neat when you think about recreating that event that that kicked off Booth so many months ago. Well, is there anything you want to add about the 20 years before we get into some of the stuff going on?
Well, just that it's interesting. 20 years, even though I wasn't here, it was about the carrying on of the books, but now we've been involved in some of these small transformations around the space, and so we're rethinking the library in small ways, especially since that 20-year anniversary. And I say that because we have on our agenda about talking about the CSI space and some of the new furniture in there. And I don't know who was the president. I guess it was Lou Henkin 20 years ago?
Yes. Lou Henkin.
But since then, Bill Perry has visited the space, and he's been interested in some of the new spaces in the library, like our Center for Student Innovation. And Beth and I were talking on the way over how Bill had even given us some money to help renovate the CSI space. So he's interested, as well as a lot of other people, in sort of the way the library is evolving over the years. And that's been fascinating, too.
That's kind of cool. Let's go into some of the things. I know you want to talk about the awards for excellence. Let's go into that. And the winners have been chosen. So can you talk about that?
Yes. Just last week, the winners were chosen. We have 5 undergraduates and 4 graduate students out of 31 entries this year that were chosen to receive awards. We asked students, any student who used Booth Library, to help with their research, and that might mean they used a computer lab or a librarian helped them find stuff, or they looked things up in our catalog. Whatever the case may be, they could submit that research project to be judged by our panel, which was the Library Advisory Board members. This Friday at 11 a.m. in our library, we'll be having a ceremony for these 9 students. They'll get up and speak briefly about what their research was about, and they'll get a certificate, etc. Directly after that, the campus-wide EIU Student Research and Creativity Discovery Conference will be taking place immediately after. Those poster sessions are taking place in the library, and then they have some other activities taking place across campus.
Neat.
Was there a lot of competition for that award?
Yeah. The point totals came down to just like a point difference in a lot of the areas, and so there was a lot of discussion about. We have one tie for that reason, but it was very, very close, and Fortunately, if we had more money, we could give more prizes, but we had a certain amount of prize money to give away, and we just had to limit it to first, second, and third, and an honorable mention for each category.
And it's tough being a judge on those things.
Oh, very.
Because some of them, it's hard to separate. Where do you draw the line, or how do you figure that out? I've always said that, and be careful on that.
Some of them too it's not only timely, but they get creative. We had one that was a TikTok entry, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. One of them. It didn't have. Most of them, submit research papers, but it doesn't have to be.
No.
We've had videos of one. We've had art projects where they created some piece of art. They did some research in the library, about a certain style of art or whatever. And this year we had somebody submitted a paper, but there was also a series of videos and TikToks to go along with it. So
there you go. That's the world we live in right now.
That's right.
National Library Week's coming up, and then Ramin, who was doing the work on the backside, he didn't believe this was a real thing, the Edible Book Festival.
Oh.
So talk about those two things.
It's like our version of Is It Cake, huh?
I just watched that whole thing last weekend on Netflix. National Library Week happens every year. It's a national celebration put on by American Library Association. This year, Molly Shannon from Saturday Night Live is the official spokesperson for it, but Connect with Your Library is the theme. So Booth Library does several things every year for National Library Week, and as you said, we kick it off Monday with our Edible Book Festival. The last 2 years we had to do it virtually, but we're back in person, which is a lot more fun. So until the 31st, which I think is Thursday this week, you can enter. There's a very quick form online, but basically you take any sort of a book and make something related to that book out of food. We do not eat the entries, but you are asked to bring them in on Monday morning, and then they'll be out all that day in the Marvin foyer of the library, and people can stop by and vote for their favorites.
Can you give some examples of some creative entries?
Yeah.
You've had some favorites?
Yeah. Some people do some puns, like the 50 Shades of Grey series. Someone did 50 Shades of Earl Grey and then had
the tea and stuff.
like
Yeah.
strong tea to weak tea. Some people do very elaborate decorated books, like someone did The Hobbit a couple years back, and it's like, if you looked inside, there was just very minute little things in there related to The Hobbit. That was really cool. Some people do other things beyond cakes. Someone made an alligator out of like the backs of pineapples once, and had other things on it to make it look like a pineapple to go along with the kids' book. So there's all kinds of things. It's a lot of fun to see how creative people can be.
But why don't you eat them at the end?
Because you don't want to eat anything I've made. My hands have been all over that. We'll have snacks,
Okay.
refreshments, but nobody wants to eat the stuff that people have been molding with their hands for
You're
for
probably.
hours.
Yeah, you never.
Yeah, and with the National Library Week, is it more of just about like raising awareness overall for what's going on at libraries?
Yeah, exactly. And it's sponsored by the American Library Association, so it is bringing visibility to what libraries do, what they do for the community, public libraries, academic libraries.
Is Molly Shannon doing anything online where people can go and do like a Zoom or a Q&A or anything?
She's getting ready to debut a book that she has written. Let's see if I have the name of her book here. But I haven't heard about a national Zoom event, but she's been involved in like some commercials and flyers and online and things like that.
Okay.
She said her mom was a librarian.
Oh, really?
And so she was.
I wonder how they picked her. So that makes
I don't know.
sense.
They usually pick either a celebrity or an author every year, and since she has a book coming out, I guess that's good for her.
She's both.
National Library Week is also a chance for us to thank the people who work at the library. So we have a couple of events.
What do you do? We'll talk about
well,
that.
I'm not going to tell you because it's a surprise for our workers.
We don't say who, but just like
But we'll have some snacks. We've got some things planned on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. The public won't see it, but the people who work there will, and that's it's a chance to show appreciation for them.
That's
we try to bring snacks and have some fun stuff for them.
Okay, Tristan.
Yeah. Also, the $50,000 grant you guys got. What were you able to add through that? What are some of the details of that?
So you have details of it, the Workforce Development Grant, but I should say briefly that we've had success, thanks to Beth, in getting awarded a couple of grants, and one started with a digital literacy grant where it was the Office of Broadband, right, through the state of Illinois, under the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and it allowed us to hire a graduate student from communications. He did a train-the-trainer program and worked with our community partners, public libraries in the area, the Mattoon School District, Lakeland Community College, School of Extended Learning, where he talked about digital literacy, so working online, and then it was a scalable or modular curriculum so that when he was training these libraries in the schools, they could take what they needed back for their own patrons or constituency, and then they could repackage it to what their needs were, assuming that we were all at different positions. And it was from there, though, that we built on that, also doing an instruction type program through that, where down in the Center for Student Innovation, we have technology checkout, and we also do an instructional component teaching students how to use certain software and hardware. So it just seemed logical that we would build on that through the Illinois State Library in working with the College of Education in securing this $50,000 grant, so that now we could shift to more career development and skills development, because we're interested in offering through the library skills and technology, hardware, software that students would need so that they can become more hands-on and marketable for when they graduate. Right?
Is that something you think libraries are doing more of? Because I mean, maybe the older folks think of libraries as books and magazines, newspapers, but you're doing some cutting-edge stuff over there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think a lot of libraries are. I think they need to be responsive and flexible to what their community needs are, and that's always been sort of in the DNA of librarians and libraries, especially for public libraries, but now academic libraries have really had an opportunity to go beyond the basic research skills into how to use podcasting or how to use 3D printing that is needed in the field when you're making sneakers or medical equipment or that kind of stuff, or how to be visual oriented so that when they're working on a research project, it's in a format that's easier to understand, a more visual narrative that's sort of translatable in an online format, because if you're in a boardroom, people don't always want to hear 30 minutes of a lecture style. They'd rather see it, and that's just the age we're in social media. And that's the digital literacy component, is understanding how you read that social media. How are things translated? How do you read information quickly in a different format and environment? And we're just responding to those changes culturally.
And that's where the Center for Student Innovation really, that's what a couple of years ago when we talked about this. Now it's caught on, and you keep making it better. New furniture and activities going on. So let's talk about CSI a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice. So we had mentioned in one of our previous episodes that we got some money from the Charleston Area Charitable Foundation, $50,000 to remodel the space, and it looks really beautiful. It's nice. One of the things, though, that was a little aged there that we were just cobbling together is this flexible furniture. And by flexible, we mean is on casters, so you can move it around, shift it, so that when a class comes in, they don't necessarily sit in rows, but they're more interactive and collaborative, so they can move the seats around. And finally, we were able to get some money from a retired history faculty member who was the head of faculty development. And faculty development is in the library. Their office is in there. Gave us $25,000 to purchase the furniture. And we also got a small grant money from former President Bill Perry that helped us purchase this furniture. So now we can formalize and make it the same throughout with this one company. We've been working with Steelcase that's made this possible, and they're now setting up the furniture in the space, but just formalizes the use of all of the equipment and then the collaborative furniture inside the active learning space. I think just really signals a shift or transformations around teaching, learning, and even scholarship, what's happening in that space for the library.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and providing some of these things just across the board with your services, as far as providing students with learning real world things and learning skills. I imagine that's something that's really, you're saying, it's really important as far as overall just education and providing students with those opportunities.
Yeah. And we feel really good about it. I mean, we've had students stop by there. One who's running has a podcast and runs it live Fridays out of Chicago, has come in to use the podcasting equipment. Just the fact that they can see that, hey, I can record stuff in our podcasting studio, I can save it online, I can create a podcasting channel, I can utilize a 3D printer, and then we have a breakout room. It's a virtual reality lab, so they can see how could virtual reality be used in real settings, to demo things or to try out certain scenarios or even think about augmenting reality. When you're reading a history book, you often wonder, well, how did people in ancient Greece interact with us? Well, now they can just put on a set and well, really, and sort of gamify it and see, or write a program so they can see how this figure interacted with everybody else in ancient Greece or ancient Rome.
Now that we're knock on wood coming out of COVID and where you don't have to, we don't have to be as masked up and there's things are happening, what are the changes at the library? And then will we see more, in-person events as we go forward in the year 2022 and 23?
Yeah, we follow the campus guidelines, of course, but masking and social distancing, those have mostly been restricted. So, we do have masks available for students when they enter if they would like to wear one, but it's no longer a requirement. As we talked about, some of the things that we've had to do virtually for the last couple of years are coming back. So our building has been very, very busy this school year, but especially this spring with not just our activities, but people using our spaces. A lot of in-person events, the Edible Book Festival, as I said, our book sale coming up, lectures and programs from other departments are taking place in our building. So there's a lot of activity going on.
Have you worked on thinking about your big display things that you've done over the past? And are those set in stone, or are you kind of in the middle?
For the larger exhibits?
Yeah, exhibits, yeah.
I think we have an exhibits committee that's working on what we're going to do next.
Any tease? You want to give us any tease? Maybe it's going to be. I always like to break news if we can.
Nothing yet.
All right,
Nothing yet.
Fault the guy for trying. Let's talk about that book sale. That's always a big event, your spring book sale coming up April 13th.
Yeah, weather permitting, I always have to throw that out there. It is
mostly now.
It's outdoors, underneath the clock tower.
Have we traditionally tried to do that during National Library Week?
Yes,
right?
we pushed it back 1 week because National Library Week is earlier than usual.
Yeah.
Usually it's the second or third week in April, and for some reason it's the first. I don't know, whoever makes that. But we were a little concerned that it would still be chilly. So we pushed the book sale back till next week, which is fine. We have a lot going on next week, so
no, that makes sense.
It doesn't hurt my feelings to push it back, but we still, everything else will be the same. We'll be open from 9 to 4. Obviously, if the weather is damp or wet at all, we can't have all of those books outside, so we will have to postpone. So keep an eye on our social media if that occurs. But otherwise, it's open to the public. You can get a lot of good deals.
Now, you sell the books that are doubles or triples, or just that you're moving out because of space? Where do those books come from?
Yeah, we have community members and campus people on campus donate books to us year-round. So when that happens, our librarians will go through them, and if it's a book we already have on the shelf, we might put it in the book sale. Or if it's in better condition than the book that we have on our shelf, we'll keep the good one and sell the old one. Or if it's just something that we don't think we really need, it goes in the book sale. So almost a majority, if not all, of the books that we sell are things that have been donated or weeded out of our own collection.
And a little anecdote is that last year we sold some records in the fall, and those
albums
LPs
go fast.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any this year.
Yeah, I think we do, and we have some DVDs and CDs too.
Oh, really?
CDs don't enjoy that
books.
appeal quite like LPs do, though.
No.
Yeah, LPs
CD is my favorite, so I like that.
I don't have any way to play CDs anymore.
Oh, you don't? Your car didn't have a CD player?
I don't think so.
Wow. Well, a lot of them are going out, so there you go. So, what else we want to talk about today? I know you have plenty of lists, and my list is going in and out. So.
I gave you a long list. Something that I didn't put on your list because I didn't know about it at the time. Our librarians are starting today. Actually, are going to be offering walk-in research help. They do this all the time. You can go in and ask for help from a librarian at any time. But some of their conversations have been, they keep hearing the same questions over and over again from students. Like a professor will say, you need to get a scholarly article for this paper, or you need to get a peer-reviewed article for this paper. And students are like, well, I need help. What's a peer-reviewed article? So they decided to just set some times, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, starting today through the end of the semester, where students can just stop by. The times are 3:15 on Mondays, 1:15 on Wednesdays, 10:15 on Thursdays. I'm not sure why they picked 15. Maybe they're used to students being late. I don't know. But you can just go to the fourth floor desk, and a librarian will be there to provide whatever help you need. This is the busy time of year for those end of semester papers. We always have a big rush right before midterm, and then those 2 weeks leading up to finals. So So students out there, if you need some help, you can stop by any time. It doesn't have to be during one of those times, but at those particular times, they have very set activities and information our librarians will be ready to
I like the fact of being proactive on things like that too, so I would help the students out. Mostly students who are in a hurry because, they're very busy, as you know.
That's also true. I noticed you had a display up for African American Heritage Month. What all was included in that, and how was that put together?
A couple of librarians on staff put that together. We had a few different things on display. Some were some basic civil rights information and some highlights of important people in civil rights history. The most localized one was an exhibit about Charles Hall, who was a graduate of EIU, who was one of the first Tuskegee Airmen in the war. I'm cheating looking at my newsletter, but he was the first African-American pilot to shoot down an enemy aircraft during World War II. So he kind of has a claim to fame here. In fact, he was one of the people being considered to be named.
Because it was going to be Hall.
The new dormitory, Hall.
I thought that would have been great.
So he had some special information there specifically about him.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, when we talk about this, there's always these neat stories that you have. So I'm putting you on the spot again today. But you're earmarking the 20 years of the renovation. But there's been so many things that have happened neat at the library. Now that you both have been there for a while, what other kind of neat anecdotes or stories or things that maybe everybody doesn't know about Booth Library? Yeah, does something stick out? I know we've talked about this in the past, but
the biggest things that I've been involved with has been along the programs and exhibits over the years. So the one that sticks out the most to me is 8 or 9 years ago, we did an America's Music series. That was our topic. And the only time that we've done that before and since, we worked with our friends over at the Dowden and did a opening and closing over there that was really a lot of fun. I was up in the booth like you, helping the person with the script, reading everything off out loud. I mean, this was all new to me, but it was fun to learn something new. But we were able to look at different genres of music. We had, the local bluegrass band come in and the local Elvis impersonator come in. And, we were able to display the history of all these different genres of music, but we just made it a lot of fun. In addition to learning a lot about the music, we got to host a lot of performances. So that was a highlight.
Zach, anything coming to mind?
Hard to say, just COVID. I mean, in my history in libraries, I feel like I've been involved in some crisis or another. I had started a job years ago where 1 month into my job, they just closed the library. It was never designed to be a library. It didn't hold. It didn't hold books. I know. And so looking back, and then I was abroad at one point, during the Arab Spring, and I remember being called regularly saying, "Hey, don't show up to work today. There's protests going on, and it might not be safe." And now looking back, COVID, I think, is a pretty big moment too, because it really put a pause on sort of the things that we were doing, including, remember, we had the Comic-Con plan with Craig Titley, and we'd love to get back into doing something like that, or even hold the Comic-Con again. But I just feel like these big disruptors really shift the way you view what you're doing, and how can you alter course and make it just as meaningful for students.
And mostly right now, because we're really at the 2-year anniversary of COVID, if that's the right way. I don't know if anniversary is the right word, but it was really 2 years ago when our lives all changed.
That's right. That's right.
We didn't know what was going on those first few months, and now that we're, knock on wood, coming out of it a little bit, it's weird how the dynamic is changing. Whether people are going to go back to in-person or stick to Zoom meetings or some kind of combination, because it really has changed our lives. I read something, and I don't know the details, but I wrote on my notes, blind date for a book.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, blind date with the book we did throughout February. And we had talked about doing it for several years, but we just hadn't gotten it together. It happened so soon in the spring semester. It's just like we had so many other things going on. But this year we have an intern working with me, a professional writing intern, so I dumped a lot of it on her, and she did a great job. But basically what it was is we chose, our staff made recommendations for books that we have on the shelves. We pulled the books, wrapped them in brown paper, and just put hints on the outside about what it's about. So you have a blind date. And so we had the book set out on a table. We worked with our circulation staff to figure out how to copy the scan code and put it on the front so they didn't have to unwrap the books to check them out. A few logistics that we figured out. But, the idea is don't judge a book by its cover. You just read the little hints. You check out the book. Then you take it home and unwrap it to see who your blind date is with.
That's a good. Stuff like that. I like neat stuff like that.
It was. We couldn't keep up with the demand. It was so popular. We ended up. Our committee were first like, well, we'll pull 30 or 40 books and see how it goes. And in the end, we pulled 116 books.
Holy cow!
Because,
you can do that again?
Because I kept walking down there and the table would be empty again. I'm like, oh my gosh! And so we'd pull more and we'd wrap them. we had a wrapping service going on in the dean's office the entire month of February. I started work because I'm like, wrap these.
Well, that's a good idea. I mean, you think about it, because a lot of people don't know what they want to read next, with little hints like that and something fun. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
And a few minutes left today with Beth Heldebrandt and Zach Newell. Anything on your mind, Tristan, over there?
Yeah, just with the blind date with a book. Did you hear from anyone like, oh, this is my favorite book? I would have never picked it, but maybe, you know.
We had an online form that we stuck inside the book. There was a little thing that said, if you want to let us know how it goes, go to our form. And so only one person said they didn't like the book they chose.
That's not
only
bad.
about 30% of the people filled out the form, but still. But we realized if we do this again, we have to ask them what book they read, because they were saying things like, this is the best book I've ever read. I'm like, which book did you read? Because we all want to know.
You got to give them some kind of number
We didn't ask
system.
them what book they chose.
Well, that's how you learn stuff. I mean, but that's a neat backstory, too.
Yeah.
Make sure you put a number on it and track it.
All positive, and they said they loved it. And
But it was like
I think we should do it all the time.
And it was like a matchmaker, right? You had little keys on the outside of the book that would say stuff like wedding, countryside, California, or something like that, or thriller.
We tried to make it like online dating, and so the categories were like
I don't know about
soulmate or never again or things like that they could vote on. So
I mean, I think blind date. I think like your friend is like, oh, this person is 1, 2, 3, like these 3 things about him, and you're like, oh, okay, like yes or no. So similar.
That was kind of the hints on the outside of the book.
That's kind of cool. I like it. So we got a couple minutes left. Any other things that you want to get out? This always goes fast when you two show up, because we just start gabbing.
We talk so much.
Yeah, right.
That's good.
No, it's good.
So the library, maybe the last thing I'll say is that's on our radar is the library. We look at it as a sort of a critical space for the campus to be able to have conversations about in-depth topics, political issues, social issues, and we have something coming up Tuesday, April 12th, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. in the West Reading Room, and it's called Race Chats. It's going to be hosted by librarian Steve Brantley and Dr. Carol Collins Ayanlaya, who's from the College of Education, and essentially they're just going to host a conversation about race on campus. So invite all people from across campus to talk about the relationship with race, and it's going to be prompted by a series of sort of not quite provocative, but interesting critical questions about,
very topical, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think we're just building on that as a way to the campus community to continue that conversation and make room and space to be able to talk about it and converse it in an academic, personal, and perhaps even an emotional way too. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
We usually do 8 questions at the end. We're out of time, but I'll give you one. Is there any new author that's out there that's just creating buzz in the book world? Is there a new author out there? I was just throwing that out there for either of you.
Well, I'll tell you the new author that I read that created buzz is I read Will Smith's autobiography, and apparently last night he created quite a buzz.
He's a little bit in the news today. One of my questions was, did you watch the Oscars last night? But
I
real
did.
quick, Beth.
The author that I would say is actually an old author that has become popular thanks to Bridgerton, but it's Julia Quinn.
Okay.
Bridgerton is a series on Netflix that everybody's into, so her books have suddenly become very popular.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.